Hello and welcome everyone to this session on the role of chambers of commerce in sustainable development. My name is James Ellsmore. I am the CEO of Island Innovation, and I'll be moderating this session as unfortunately Richard Rambaram from the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Guyana was unable to join us. We had a series of bad luck with this session, unfortunately, with our speakers who completely, for various reasons, we had two other speakers drop out. So unfortunately, we won't have Steve Dent from the Falkland Islands Chamber of Commerce or Catherine Papani from the Niue Chamber of Commerce, which is a shame, but we'll look forward to inviting those speakers to attend for a future event. However, I'm delighted to say that we do have two speakers representing two very different chambers of commerce, or two very different islands, that will give us a very interesting perspective. The reason that I wanted us to bring this session together is that the chambers of commerce play a very interesting role as a liaison between government and civil society and the private sector that they represent. And really, they're an engine to promote. They can act as an engine to promote economic growth, bringing together various different organizations. I'm just going to do a quick poll to see which organizations we have represented here, or which regions. So attendees, you should see on your screen an option to fill in the poll to tell us which region you're from, which sector that you belong to, and which industry you are a part of. So please do go ahead and fill those out. And so first we'll be hearing from Beatrice Elias, who's the Executive Director of the Haiti Chamber of Commerce, and then from Joseph Borg, who is the President of the Gozo Business Chamber in Malta. So we're going from one of the largest countries in the Caribbean, Haiti, to Gozo, which represents a small island region. And I'm delighted to say that Richard Rambaran has joined us, who's the Executive Director of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So I'll hopefully shortly hand over to him. Just to share the results of the poll, you'll see that we have around 30% of the audience from the Caribbean, 30% from North America, 13% in Europe, others from the Pacific, Asia, and South and Central America. We have around 60% of people joining from the private sector, and then others from government, NGOs, and academia. And then a wide range of sectors, not least the energy sector and the environment sector, but also finance and management consulting represented. So a pretty broad audience with us today. Richard, are you there? How are things with you?
I am here. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. At least good afternoon from Guyana, and thank you all for being here. Thank you also for having me.
Wonderful, Richard. Well, I've just introduced a little bit about the panel and just explained that unfortunately two of our speakers at the last minute were not able to join us, but we will have Beatrice and Joseph both presenting. So I'll hand over to you maybe to do a short introduction about yourself and the work of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, and then lead into the presentations from the two other speakers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, James. Is everyone hearing me clearly, or James, are you hearing me clearly?
Perfectly.
Right, perfect, and you're seeing me well too.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Okay, fantastic. So, good afternoon to everyone, all the participants on this call. My name is Richard Rambaran. I am the Executive Director for the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry here in Guyana, and I am also a member of the Caribbean Chamber of Commerce, the Network of Caribbean Chambers of Commerce, CARICHAM, an initiative which I am happy to see has become the mature institution that it is today, or the maturing institution that it has become today. It gives me great pleasure to, of course, represent under that banner, as well as the Chamber of Commerce for Guyana, both because I've been involved with the private sector for a majority of my career, and I was instrumental along with the executive directors for Trinidad, Barbados in guiding the initial discussions along on CARICHAM. So I'm very happy here, of course, to be participating. I want to also say that the topic overall, Chambers of Commerce and Sustainable Development mapped into the Island Finance Forum, IFF, is one which is so pivotal within the current context. And it really, I'm a trained economist, and really it gives me incredible satisfaction to see that as a region, this is where we are headed with our conversations. And this is really where we are going in terms of thought leadership and advancing the conversations. So maybe, James, if you might permit me, of course, as the key person here, to give a bit of a description on what the speakers can, on what the participants can expect from this particular session. So this session, Chambers of Trade and Commerce essentially play a key role in the dialogue between civil society and governments to power as well as to guide the construct of sustainable development. And with the support of chambers, a government can be more responsive and more useful to business and the economic needs of a community. What that does is that it enables a chamber of commerce to act as an engine to promote a more efficient and prosperous economy, and by extension, one that increases the wealth of the country. What this session features particularly is the executive directors for 2 chambers of commerce from islands around the world. And of course, in this case, we have Malta as well as Haiti being represented. And of course, regrets from our colleagues, Stephen Dent from Falkland Islands Chamber of Commerce, as well as from New Chamber of Commerce. So essentially what we'll be doing in this session, we'll be facilitating a discussion on how chambers can contribute to sustainable development. Now, I just want to say that, of course, the concept of sustainable development, as you guys probably have established throughout the conversations, needs no introduction, and it practically deals with how we chart a new development path within the construct of environmental consciousness, within the construct of carbon consciousness, and how it is that we as individual citizens and actors, as well as individuals from chambers of commerce, private sector, can effectively guide the discussion along and support and promote a real climate conscious and environmentally conscious way of driving economic growth and the concomitant development. So with that, I'm happy, of course, to open the session here today. And I would be grateful for us to proceed into what it is that we have to do today. So, James, I'm not sure if you would like to say anything else at this point.
No, over to you, Richard. Maybe we can go first with Beatrice and then over to Joseph.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So with that, I have the pleasure of introducing Beatrice Elias, who is the Executive Director for the Haiti Chamber of Commerce, colleague Executive Director, as well as a colleague within CARICHAM. So without further ado, Beatrice, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you everyone for being with us tonight. And yes, it is actually a real plus to be part of the CARICHAM network. It helps understanding the needs and of everyone in the region, but it also give another perspective compared to the demands of each island. So I will just say a few things about Haiti. that I'm sure I won't surprise anybody saying that for the past 2-3 years, Haiti has been really going through a roller coaster. And it used to be one of the most open economies in the Caribbean, with a number of sectors looking for foreign direct investment. And although the business climate is difficult, Haiti legislation encourages foreign direct investment, and the Haitian Investment Code grants the same right, privileges, and equal protection to local and foreign companies. So the government provides two types of foreign investment incentives: customs incentives and tax incentives. And import and export policies are not discriminatory and not based on nationality. Haiti has preferential access to key markets, including Canada, the United States, and the European Union. Haiti has 4 major international ports: Port-au-Prince, Cap-Haïtien in the north of the country, Lafito and Saint-Marc, and 2 international airports offer multiple daily flights between Haiti and the United States. The city of the north of Cap-Haïtien also offers quick access to industrial park, Caracol and Codeville, located in the free zones of the northeast region of Haiti. To give you a little recap, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Haiti was founded in 1896 and was recognized as public utility in 1907. The Chamber of Haiti is organized into 10 decentralized structures, departmental chambers, and a central structure. The chambers of commerce actively participate in the economic life of the country. They are essential structures to promote investment and defend businesses. Essential in the role of interface that they play between the states and the private sector, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry is more than ever a vector of development in Haitian society and in any societies, as a matter of fact. I had the chance to participate in the International Chamber of Commerce conference that happened in Dubai in November. And one of the speakers, the president of the Chamber of Commerce of Marseille in the south of France, said that today you have to change or die. So we definitely have to adapt ourselves to the new world and the new demands and the environment and everything that is directly linked to our offer, I would say, and our duty as a Chamber of Commerce, as a matter of fact. So more than a corporation, Chambers of Commerce are facilitators and helpers. They play a significant role in the economic sphere of the country. They help to create the proper environment for investment. And when it comes to business creation, they promote startup and business expansion by providing them with technical expertise. To go through all the content today, for the sustainable finance, we don't have any big project yet in Haiti. I have to admit that we have an emergence of companies financing projects in agriculture. We have a model that is currently putting into place what they call in the warrantage. It's an inventory credit system, normally called the warehouse receipt system, or WRS in English. So that would be what we have as an example for the climate finance here. For the renewable energy finance, we do have, according to the Caribbean Renewable Energy Forum, Haiti has a strong energy potential and can, within the next 5 years, host the growth of renewable energies. On average, 85% of electricity is produced from imported fossil fuels. And Haiti is an interesting renewable energy project because the largest contribution of renewable energy to Haiti's energy source comes from hydroelectricity. Blue economy, we do have a fishery, and we could actually do a lot of things through the ocean and use the ocean resources for economic growth. As blockchain and cryptocurrency, we do have blockchain project with the World Bank in mango and avocado, and we're currently working on other type of produce. For the startup ecosystem, we have some startup ecosystem being put into place here and there. There are still small, but they're there. So there is a movement. We, like I said, we have great resources in fishery and agriculture. And of course, as a country located in the Caribbean, we are well positioned to produce solar energy. So I'm not sure, I don't know if, I know I went over my 7 minutes of presentation. Should I leave some time for the other panelists and we go back with question? Richard, what do you think? Richard?
Feel free to continue, Beatrice, if you have some more comments, but we could also hear from Joseph. Richard's here.
Yes, okay. I'm here. I don't know why the Zoom is giving me technological difficulties. These technologies are actually supposed to make your life a little bit easier. Sometimes it makes it a bit more complex. So yes. Firstly, James, I think perhaps it might be prudent if we take any questions, burning questions from the audience.
I would say if we go to Joseph for the next presentation and then take all of the questions at the same time for a discussion.
Okay, sure, no problem. We can do that. All right. So what we'll do at this time, of course, as James has highlighted, is Joseph Org, the president of the Gozo Business Chamber. This is in Malta, but of course make his brief presentation. So for those of you who have been following, just of course keep your questions nearby and we'll host them subsequently.
Thank you. Good evening. For us, it's 10 o'clock in the night. So I would like, first of all, to thank you for inviting me to address this Island Finance Forum and to hear from Europe about developments on the role of chambers of commerce in sustainable development. And the topic of this particular panel, as I was saying, is within this Island Finance Forum, is to discuss how chambers can contribute to sustainable development. First of all, I speak a little bit about myself. Today, I am practically wearing 2 hats. First of all, I am president of Insulair. Insulair is the association which represents the insular chambers of commerce of the European islands. Gozo at the moment, our island, is president of Insulair. Obviously, I'm also president of a small chamber in the small island of the Mediterranean, Malta. And our island, Gozo, has got its own chamber, and we are the 2nd largest island of the Maltese archipelago. Okay, for those who don't know where Malta is, it's in the Mediterranean Sea. It's basically in the center Mediterranean Sea, below the larger island of Sicily. Okay, but we are an independent country in the European Union. So islands face challenges, and those that are related to sustainable development more than any other regions. How are we to continue to grow without in any way compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs? Are we going to search for what is right or for what is easy? If we are going to aim for the latter, for what is easy, we'll surely target quick fix, short-term solutions, which while bringing windfall earnings in the beginning, would then compromise the ability of our island economies to grow sustainably in the long term. Let me bring a small example. Let's speak about tourism. Islands obviously have a very attractive natural environment, which makes them an automatic choice for investors in tourism. While other economic niches are possible on islands, they are more difficult to create and the challenges are greater, are multiple. However, investors on islands see tourism as a quick economic gain opportunity, investing many a times not on sustainable market models, but on a mass market economic model, which has significant negative effects on which has significant negative economic repercussions on islands. Other sectors which have a significant negative economic impact include, for example, construction, which is related to tourism. Islands' attraction as exotic places in the popular imagination makes them more prone to plunder by unscrupulous investors, with the massive construction targeted towards developing second homes for people on the mainland, for example. This in turn creates a significant negative impact on the environment. While these approaches may create short-term gains, they also create long-term problems at the same time, which in turn compromises the future of these islands in an indelible way. However, what the COVID-19 pandemic has shown and has taught us is that islands were too reliant on the sector, on tourism. And that is why during the COVID-19 pandemic, islands suffered greatly. These are the challenges which islands face continuously. Islands are very fragile ecosystems, which are not only burdened by challenges such as accessibility, but their geographical positions in the periphery of a country, like ours, for example, also brings other challenges related to them, primarily and principally those related to their governance. Their geographical distance also creates a distance from the center of government. And in the absence of a strong regional government, they may risk being forgotten by the center where the administration is. This is a continuous challenge for us, and one in both regional and transnational chambers can play and do play a very important role, as shown by our experience during the recent pandemic. During the past 2 years, we have had the opportunity to highlight, as insular now, the particular economic situation of islands. We were speaking of islands in Europe, but these problems are universal. In fact, we had the opportunity to write and put forward the specific challenges faced by islands at all levels. We wrote to the European Commission, we wrote to the European Council, and also to the European Parliament. I had the opportunity, and in my letter of the 18th June 2020, where I wrote to these institutions, that while we were welcoming the European Commission's recovery instruments for the pandemic at that point in time, that is the Next Generation EU, and the proposed changes to the multi-annual financial framework. The framework is the financial tool which the European Union uses. It was the financial framework 2021-2027. I also had the opportunity to highlight the difficulties faced by island economies at that point in time. And these were and are, first of all, limited accessibility, isolation, thirdly, high dependence on a narrow range of economic activities, in some cases solely reliant on tourism. Fourth, the inexistence and inadequateness of healthcare facilities. Fifth, the availability of a few resources due to our small size. And obviously, we have small internal markets, insignificant internal markets. To this end, I highlighted that the recovery package of the European Union should be channeled to give priority to regions with economies which have been impacted most negatively by the COVID-19 pandemic, and which also have limited capacity and resources to recover from its effect. I had indicated that such an approach would ensure a level playing field for all insular businesses. But ourselves, apart from being a voice in the chamber and the chambers, apart apart from being a voice, chambers can also be an important generators of ideas. In November 2019, as Insulaire, we organized a forum in our island, Gozo, discussing the potential of digitalization for smaller insular communities. Little did we know back then what the future would hold for us. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has shown that people, especially in high-yield economic sectors, can work from anywhere, independent of their geographical locations. This means that sectors such as digitalization, which I have mentioned, hold considerable potential for islands. However, islands must be put in the right conditions to deliver, providing them with adequate incentive packages and also the required infrastructure in terms of connectivity. The opportunities are endless for islands in digitalization. These sectors can secure the future of island economies, as their impact on the environment is very minimal. The same can be said if, for example, we channeled research, especially that related to the testing of new technologies targeted towards reducing our carbon footprint on islands. The green economy has considerable potential for islands. However, this must be channeled towards providing real value added, with research being carried out on islands themselves and firms being set up there. Chambers many a times have the required status and independence to create the necessary narrative at the policymaking level, which would ensure that the required attention is diverted towards islands. Chambers, especially those at an island level, are in themselves faced with their own challenges, our own challenges, especially those regarding resources. However, the secret lies in creating the necessary networking at a regional, national, and international level. This allows chambers on islands to punch above their weight. It is only then that they can and we can make our voices heard. I again thank the organizers of this forum for inviting me to be a panelist on this event, and congratulate them for this forum, which will surely help to bring to the fore the challenges faced by islands wherever they are, but also not only that, to search for solutions which we can all work together. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. All right, so I think this brings us to a segment, of course, that is usually very interesting. That is the question and answer segment. Before we delve into that question and answer segment, though, I think we have been blessed or somewhat fortunate here in Guyana, even though we are considered part of the Caribbean, to not have the same or part of that entire small island developing state construct, to not have the same natural disasters that befall some of the other countries. However, and this is very important, because even if a country is not prone to natural disasters such as hurricanes or tornadoes, etc., we still face the very strong reality of having to contend with flooding and the effects of climate change. And thus, I think it puts all of us within an architecture that we have to begin to consider climate smart infrastructure, and ensure that when we build, we ensure we channel governments in the direction of ensuring that they construct climate resilient infrastructure. in Guyana, though we have not had this level of natural disasters, we have suffered from flooding in the past. In 2005, we experienced rainfall that the country did not ever experience in its history, recent history or modern history. And what that flooding during that year demonstrated to us is that we as an economy are vulnerable and susceptible to flooding. That particular year, 25% of the Guyanese GDP was wiped out as a result of that flood. And this is a 1 week event, 1 week of torrential rainfall that changed the entire economic services sectors for that entire fiscal year. And it made a lot of persons in the country realize that though we as an economy and us Guyanese as a country are not prone to natural disasters, we are not in any way immune or exempted from the effects of climate change and climate reality. With that, the government of the day then constructed what is now known as the Hope Canal Project, which is a massive conservancy where all of the water that would be accumulated in the city and the surrounding environs can be drained into that conservancy, held, and then dispatched into the ocean. Because part of what we face as a country in terms of coastal vulnerability is the fact that we are 6 feet below sea level. And thus, our infrastructure, of course, Guyana once being a Dutch colony, is very similar to that obtains in Netherlands. And for those of you who may be geographically inclined, you know that Netherlands as a country is also below sea level. So this in itself means that a country like Guyana has to be able to think about climate change in a developmental perspective, and also guide infrastructure and supporting infrastructure to ensure that we can withstand and be resilient to the effects of climate change. I think that is in a short-term and a medium-term sense, or when one looks at it within a static time frame. In a more dynamic sense, what Guyana has been working towards, and of course, naturally, the Chamber of Commerce supports that position, is that we have been working towards taking more of our commercial activities inland and ensuring that when we construct a new modern space, a new modern city, that we are actually ensuring that we prepare for the future of climate change and the reality of climate change. So I think this is extraordinarily important to especially small island developing states, because that degree of risk that exists due to the vulnerability is one that cannot be matched in any way. I think if one asks, for example, Beatrice from the Haiti Chamber of Commerce, what happens to the economy when they are faced with one of those unfortunate natural disasters or earthquakes, there is no economic construct that really can provide full resilience against that form of natural disasters and to the size and the magnitude. And this is why planning for the future is very important, and ensuring insofar as the infrastructure can be resilient. And you'll hear me saying that word time and again, because I really do believe that it is absolutely imperative for us to have in our development constructs. So let me perhaps, with that very brief missive, see if we have any questions particularly directed to our panelists. All right, so in the chat box, we see persons, of course, networking, and please feel free to put your information in. Right. So Robert Daniels has said, more than a question, it's a comment, that all island states should have universal health care for all inhabitants, especially those islands that have below 200,000 persons. Some of these islands have less people, that's small towns, yet the healthcare is astronomically out of control. And I'll refer once again to our own domestic experience. Yes, during that flooding, we ended up with a public health crisis, an outbreak of leptospirosis, a disease, of course, that is as a result of pests intermingling with water. And it was a massive outbreak that affected the well-being of the population. And we know that once the well-being of the population is affected, productivity and efficiency in the economy, which is part of what we're discussing here, tends to suffer. So Mali Kwamina has said, Mr. Joseph Borg, I would like to share some ideas for your country's development, especially to build quality, smart, affordable homes for Malta citizens. And he has left his email address in the chat box. Right. Mali also said that together we could build safe zones in Guyana for the region, for all our brothers and sisters. And he was also saying that that's just flooding, and what about global warming and earthquakes, etc. We have to change our perspectives now. I think that is an extraordinarily important point. And in the past, Guyana, for example, has served as being a safe zone for many of our Caribbean brothers and sisters. Even right now, we accept a number of persons from Venezuela, of course, our neighboring country, in refugee status, where they can come over, and even without documentation, they can remain in the country for 90 days, sort out their documentation during that period. Because as you're aware, Guyana has one of the lowest land population densities in the Western Hemisphere. I think only Suriname has a lower population density than us. So our population to land ratio is one that is very low. So yes, I do agree we have to support each other. Ruth mentions that today she learns that there are countries with the geology that is below sea level. Yes, for some of us, it has been the perennial challenge for countries being below sea level. So Samuel, and just forgive me if I can't pronounce this surname correctly, but Samuel from Innovate Hubs and Development Found that has said, we have massive projects in Africa and SIDS, and he would like to connect. Somalia has also said that Haiti could use autoclave aerated concrete and stretch sealing technology to mitigate earthquakes in the future, and so much that we can do now to help as a region. Yes, I certainly agree. And it would be great for you to connect with the persons in this chat. So someone said that it would be interesting. Let me just see who this is. The Mario Forskins has said that it would be interesting to see more of our Caribbean islands joining in on these discussions. So there are very interesting ideas being discussed that can benefit the region. Now, a question from James Elsmore is, can the Chambers of Commerce share how they support it?
If you're able to click on the Q&A button instead of the chat, I was actually just copying some questions. So can you see where the Q&A, it says 18 questions?
Yes, I can. Okay. Yes.
Great.
Okay. Now I'm seeing it. Yes.
Good questions coming in now.
Okay, great. So Mali has asked, of course, what projects are there in Guyana right now for the renewable energy and sustainable development? So yeah, let me just, Guyana, of course, as you're aware, is a recently started producing oil. And because of that, we view our country on a global scale as being a net carbon sink. And that is partly or mainly due to the amount of forest cover that we have that really contributes to carbon capture. And because of that, we are in Guyana at this point discussing what the future of a sustainable energy mix looks like for the country. So at this point, we have 100% of our power generation coming from diesel generators that utilize HFOs, heavy fuel oils, and it makes for great opportunity for the development or for investment in that sector. Currently, the government is looking at moving away from the dependence on fossil fuel for power generation and adding more capacity. So as I would have mentioned, we would have discovered oil, and with that comes reserves of natural gas. So we will be piping the natural gas onshore into an LNG conversion facility, at which point we will then be distributing to throughout the economy or throughout the country. So that's one. If one knows about renewable energy and particularly natural gas and that, there is a component there. We are also in Guyana looking at a wind farm project. I think the great opportunity exists there, particularly given that we are right at the coastline. So that is another dimension. We are also examining hydropower. As you're aware, the word Guyana itself means land of many waters. And we have had for some time a hydropower project with one of our large falls. We have been examining how we can get that off the ground. It's called Amila Falls. So we have been looking at the Amila Falls hydropower project. And of course, without a doubt, solar and solar technology. So those are the areas of sustainable energy mix. At this point in Guyana, solar equipment, for example, comes duty-free into the country, and a lot of enterprises are actually looking to go that way. And we are well along in terms of advancing what is called the grid tie, both the infrastructure as well as the legislative framework to allow that surplus powered producers to sell power to the grid or receive credit for the power that they're sending to the grid. So those are just some opportunities that exist in Guyana on renewable energy. Let me just keep going. Can chambers of commerce share how they supported the private sector during the pandemic, share lessons, trust funds, best advice? I'll ask some of my colleagues to comment on this, Beatrice, as well as Joseph, if you guys would like to say anything, and then I can perhaps give my answers.
Okay, can I speak?
Sure, go ahead, Joseph.
Okay, so basically, business was tried a lot, during COVID, from the persons themselves and then the businesses also, in the sense. Our island, and like most islands, are reliant on tourism. And tourism was the hardest hit by COVID because people weren't moving from any place to another, So our role as a chamber, first of all, was to gather information of what was happening in our businesses. And we relied the information which we gathered, how employment was being hit, how the business was being hit, to government. And together with government, we are consulting with government how best government could help the businesses during this time. Okay, so, but then we also organized seminars. We relied, mostly on digitalization and through seminars over the internet. We tried to help the people themselves because there was a lot of stress, a lot of psychological pain in the people. And we had seminars to help people to how to treat stress, how to continue living in a good way without being hit psychologically. And so we also helped our members in that way. And these seminars which we had were very, very successful. We also lobbied with government on a European level. Okay, so that the resilience and recovery plans which the European Union prepared for our countries could be targeted in the right way. And we were saying that we should change our reliance on tourism. We should change our economy by introducing digitalization in a heavy way and also green economy. These are the two pillars which we are suggesting to government. And in fact, the European Union adopted these two pillars to help us change our economy. We want tourism, obviously, and tourism is a lucrative section of our economy, but we cannot continue relying completely on tourism. And the pandemic showed us how fragile our economy is. And we cannot continue relying completely on tourism. So we must look into digitalization, which, as I've already said in my few words, doesn't hit the environment, because tourism in some way or another hits the environment, because it has got a lot of impacts on our islands, on our fragile island economies. And also go for green energy. We want our companies to diversify their work and go into the green energy, which so that will have a different economic structure. And I think this is a good recipe for all islands all over. Okay, if we go more into digitalization, it will help us take away our isolation. It will help us with our connectivity to the outside world. Okay, and green energy. Green energy, mostly we are blessed with sun, we are blessed with wind, we are blessed with our water surroundings, and I think we should avail ourselves of these natural resources to change our island economies.
Thank you very much, Joe. Beatrice, would you like to say anything on that question?
Well, I completely agree with Joseph. The thing is, if you don't go digital, you die today. And this is, I think that the pandemic really hurt us bad, but we also learned a lot thanks to the pandemic, because we had to, like I said, always say, adapt and adjust. And because of that, we all went online. We all had to organize webinar and be there for our members and find ways to explore other opportunities. And we didn't go with the psychological aspect, but that's a good one for the next pandemic, Joseph. I'll keep that in mind. And but we went on fiscal, legal, all the aspects where the companies were concerned. Because, for example, when you had employees stuck in the US, what were you supposed to do legally about the paycheck, about everything? So we went on that side. But psychological, as a matter of fact, is very important too. And what I wanted to say also is that because of the political situation and instability in Haiti, we cannot promote tourism right now. So this is why we are trying to push blockchain technology, renewable energy, agriculture, doing it a different way, to accommodate everyone and still remain in business. Because tourism right now, it's just not possible. And we actually have the same, we have the ocean as well, we have the mountains as well. So I think that those are ecosystems to definitely explore and develop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Okay, so we have, of course, a couple of other questions here. Someone has asked, Ruth Cross has asked, curious to know what kind of legislative changes were needed to support public-private sector opportunities, or how government supported private sector to access climate finance and mitigation adaptation activities. So I'll just answer maybe from Guyana's perspective what we did. In Guyana, we have a public-private partnership government policy, which outlines how the government and the private sector will work together on public-private partnership projects. That was presented to the National Assembly by the Minister of Finance about 5 years ago, and that has been the guiding framework. Secondly, in Guyana, government has supported access to climate finance and mitigation adaptation activities by working with bilateral partners to make available windows of funding for climate projects, climate smart projects, as well as mitigation and adaptation activities. In Guyana in particular, Guyana has worked with Norway. As you might imagine, we have had a very close relationship with the Kingdom of Norway, and it is through that relationship that we were able to access funding under what is called the Red Plus initiative. So that's a bit on what Guyana has done. Beatrice or Joseph, do you guys want to add?
I'll go, Joseph. Unfortunately, we didn't have really, the private sector didn't have any real help from the government during the pandemic. But the only thing that was done is the central bank froze the interest on the loans for the companies. Otherwise, the Chamber of Commerce and all the association from the private sector really had to step up and play a role very important to be the link between the donors, between the private sector, between everything that we could offer our members, and that could be a plus for the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Beatrice.
Okay.
Joseph?
All right. In our case, in Malta, you know, government subsidized wages for those businesses that had to close, okay? Businesses who were not operating. The government paid out a sort of minimum wage, which obviously then our employers had to top up a bit. But few as a result, few jobs were lost. And so there was no problem with employment. Apart from that, government also gave the possibility for companies to borrow money at low interest rates. There was a COVID loan sort of, you know, and one could, you know, tap these funds to continue to invest in the business, so that when COVID was getting away, you know, you had new impetus in the economy. Okay, those were basically the major helps which the government gave, and you know we discussed these helps with government, and you know we didn't manage to get everything we wanted, but there was help from the side of the government, which you know we're out of the pandemic basically now, although not really out, but still. Businesses have gone on without being indented by the pandemic, you know. Tourism is running. So, you know, it wasn't business as usual, mind you, but we didn't suffer a lot. So it was okay. And now there is the recovery and resilience plan with money coming over from the European Union to each country in the European Union. And we're saying, you know, that islands should be helped more in the sense that we suffered more. And so it's always a fight to get more to your place, to your island. But we managed to get on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. So I think we just have about 6 minutes more, so we might have to give some brief responses to these questions.
Maybe Can I ask a question, Richard? I'm sorry, I wanted to raise my hand, but I just got caught up in the moment. I just want, I think it's Davel. Along the lines of digitalization, there are new digital commerce platforms that would be an ideal fit for island economies and supported by chambers. Davel, could you please talk a little bit more in the chat about that? Thank you. Thank you, Richard.
Sure, no problem, Beatrice. All right. I also want to urge folks that you know, if you find something that interests you that perhaps you'd like to reach out to us, please do. My email address is rrambaran, so R and my surname @gcci.gy. So please, if you'd like to speak anymore. Now, consumerism and development has its effect on the environment. How can chambers promote the protection of environment over consumerism? I'll just give you very briefly, for example, what we've been doing here in Guyana. We have in Guyana Green Economy Committee under our Chamber of Commerce that focuses on the promotion of green and climate smart tools and techniques and actions by the private sector. That committee has been very, very, very active. And what I found it has done is that it is infusing environmental consciousness into each and every member of the chamber. That committee is very active. It has statutory meetings monthly, but in addition to that, they have their own program of work that they meet maybe 2-3 persons every 2 weeks. They conduct seminars, webinars, forums, and it's always very, very active. How have the chambers been advancing ambition and action on SDGs, Paris Agreement, COP26, and the Sendai framework for DRR, disaster risk reduction? Beatrice or Joseph, do you guys want to speak a bit about this? Anyone?
Sorry, Richard, I had someone just went into my office and was talking to me. Could you repeat the question, please?
How have chambers been advancing ambition and action on SDGs, Paris Agreement, COP26, and the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction?
Well, regarding the climate change and the Paris Agreement, the government is dealing with it. The Chamber of Commerce is not really involved into this. Our main focus, I would say, are the SDGs, because we have a lot of SDGs to attain in Haiti, especially reduce poverty and equity and inclusion. So I have to admit that climate change, you have another association taking care of it, but we are not. The government is the entity more involved into it. But we are really about SDGs.
Yes. Joseph?
What I was saying in my initial presentation is that we are advocating for islands, that they become test beds for renewable energy research. We want the islands to be the test beds because it's more easier to practice on smaller geographical areas, research, and then try it out, and then transfer it to the mainland. We want to create economic activity through research into renewable energy on islands. Okay, that's what we are advocating also for all islands of the European Union. That's what we want for us.
Absolutely. Let me just maybe take one more question and then we can give the response to that before we'll unfortunately need to close. Let me just see which one. I think this one is very interesting, from Christopher Chinapu. Energy and food security have been major challenges for SIDS. How are the chambers working together to assure improved energy and food security in the context of the global supply chain challenges? So let me just give very quickly about what is happening in the Caribbean. I'll answer it from that regional level. In the Caribbean, of course, we are binded together by CARICOM, the Caribbean community. Now, we have taken it upon ourselves in the Caribbean region to have a look at our food import bill and then have a look at what the consumption of food is and the composition of that consumption. And because of that, at the heads of government meetings in CARICOM, the heads of governments made a conscious decision that us as the Caribbean region need to work together to reduce that import food bill in the region by 25% by 2025. What this has done is that it has driven an pro-agriculture initiative and really accelerated what the agricultural sector has been doing in the regional economy. And we in Guyana, of course, Guyana being the host of the CARICOM Secretariat, there is a massive forum that will be had during the second week of May called Agri Invest, where a number of the heads of state, chambers of commerce representatives, etc., will be coming together to discuss technologies, productivity, and essentially commercializing agriculture within the Caribbean. So I'll just offer that. Beatrice, if you want to add some more perspective.
No, I was just saying that Lizra just sent me a message saying that the CARICOM is supporting the Sendel framework. I'm currently putting the link into the chat, okay, for the business resilience toolkit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think, unfortunately, I'll tell you something. I've been a part of many forums, maybe over 100 forums, and this has been one of the forums where extraordinarily relevant questions are being asked. I love all of these questions. I wish I could answer every single one right now. From my perspective, it really would be great. So if we can maybe have these questions, James, saved, so that we can provide a relevant response to the persons asking them. So James, with my time being out, unfortunately, I will hand back over to you for you to take the lead once again. Thank you very much for having me, folks, and I hope that I've been able to do somewhat of a good job here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you also. Thank you.
And thank you, Joseph and Beatrice. I think it was a really interesting discussion. And we got a wide variety of angles looking at how the regional approach, both in Europe and in the Caribbean, has been important as well for smaller chambers of commerce to be able to collaborate and work on sustainable development. With that, we'll wrap up. Just a reminder that in 1 hour, we have another session, Slow and Steady Wins, the race to net zero island. So looking at energy and net zero. And with that, we'll finish. Thanks everyone for the great session and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.